You built your career in food hospitality. And in the middle of a pandemic, you decide to open a restaurant. And within the first year of opening this fine dining restaurant, you actually receive a Michelin star, the highest possible award for restaurants. What does it take to run a restaurant like this? What did you learn about food hospitality along the way? And how much of that actually carries over to hosting people in your own home for a meal? This is one of my favorite conversations I've ever had. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to Home Life for Extraordinary Impact. On this show, we'll get to witness in the moment research that I'm doing with experts and everyday people all around the world. What am I researching? One central question: how do you design your life at home for growth, connection, and really making your greatest impact in the world around you? On the podcast, I'm going to be doing this research by interviewing people, and you get to follow along with my analysis and findings on the Home Life Design newsletter that I will tell you all about at the end of this episode. I'm Matt Barrios. I'm a husband, a dad, a writer, and a researcher. I'll be your host today as we explore, the life of our guest. And we have a special guest today. He's a friend of mine too, Seth Stowaway. He is a extraordinary chef based in San Francisco, a Michelin star chef. I know I've got to talk you up for a little bit. And he's, I'm grateful to call him my friend. Seth, would you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Seth Stowaway. I am, in fact, a chef. I grew up in South Texas. I have a long history of moving, and I've been in a lot of different places. I've worn many hats leading up to this point. I'm super grateful to be in the city doing what I love to do, and trying to find better ways to do it.
That's great. You've been really kept making things happen at Osito restaurant, which is just received its first Michelin star within a year, which is a huge accomplishment. And, you're currently recording this from the office at the restaurant. That's what that background is. Thanks for taking the time, because you're a busy man who works late into the night every night, really perfecting this craft. And you've got the receipts to prove it too. Thanks for taking the time to talk with me about home and hospitality through food, which is something that you embody as a person. So, what are some of those places that you called home? You mentioned that you're born in South Texas. What are the places you called home?
Yeah, I mean, San Antonio is where I'm from. It's definitely how I identify in a lot of ways, or have, very grateful from being from, kind of like a really culturally beautiful city. I don't know, I've had a lot of trouble finding home, I think, that's the thing. It's I've lived in a lot of places. I don't think I've had many homes. I would say, since being with my wife, Danielle, I mean, basically anywhere we've lived together has been home. Obviously that's more of the person. I know that sounds like a cliche, but it also has to do, I'm sure, with a little bit that she has a design degree and makes everything just like a place you want to be. Aside from the fact that I want to be near her. Other than that, I've lived in a lot of places, and everywhere, everywhere on the journey has felt like the opposite of that.
Yeah. You what I'm hearing with that is home has been elusive for a while.
Yeah.
It's been hard to find, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Until you married your wife and you settled in together.
And in a lot of ways, finding restaurants, coming out of the things, that I came from, kind of rougher life, the drug addiction and, all that stuff. I also found a sense of place in restaurants, and a sense of community, there. So, those are two places. And I also, have kind of a sober community that I belong to that I also feel that is home. So home has always been more of, spaces that I share with community, less of places I inhabit necessarily.
I see. So home is, it's not about like the walls you're in, it's about the people you're with, the sort of trust and belonging that's there with those people. And I think it's interesting that restaurants are actually one of those environments where you have found community to belong to. You know, it's a place of hospitality. That's what restaurants are designed for. And that's also, even though you've come from a hard background, sort of what I'm hearing is forged through that is that you're a person who can extend hospitality to people through restaurants in a different kind of way, help people belong and feel cared for. Um, would you tell us a little bit about how you do that now through Osito, your restaurant?
Um, yeah, I mean, honestly, it's super challenging. Um, we, try to live by a set of ideals. Um, I think the main one is like how you, especially like, I think restaurants are known for, sharing hospitality with their guests, not necessarily known for sharing hospitality with each other, and like really pinpointing what and why that is, and then making decisions kind of daily to undo that. One of the things is, we talk a lot about here is like the best way to give a good experience to a guest or to share hospitality with a guest is to practice it with each other. Like it's pretty simple, right? Like treat people with intention and thoughtfulness, and kindness, and those things can be difficult in restaurants because it's really high stakes and it's really intense, and you're tired and you're working really, you work hard. There's constant deadlines. Like it's not like deadlines for most industries where like if you're like, okay, let's just push that back. It's like, no, like you have to get there every day. You can't not get there every day.
Yeah.
If you don't get there, then you won't be able to serve your guests. And so there's like that time pressure. So it's all very, it's just like, it's just like a little combustible environment, just like a pressure cooker of reasons why people, end up not able to then care for each other, with their coworkers and stuff. And so that's kind of historically, that what has happened in restaurants.
That makes sense. Like, yeah. And I mean, restaurants don't necessarily have like the reputation for being like feel good work environments.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And
because it's high stress, high stakes, as you're saying.
Yeah. And I don't know that what we're striving for is like the feel good work environment. I think that is a little bit of an illusion, because whenever you're doing something like this, like trying to execute at the level we want to execute at, it's always going to be intense, and I feel comfortable with it being that way. I love it. It's not for everyone. It's not for everyone, but there is a way in which you can do it and care for people. Like it can be intense. People can be pushing past the limits of what they thought they were capable of, which takes the feel good part away. Like
Sure.
our job is to teach people that they can go farther and that they are, they're more capable of what they believe. And that process hurts, it just does.
Yeah.
It always feels, and if you don't catch it, if you don't catch the way in which that is kind of like loving and pouring into you, like pushing you, spending energy, like exerting intention and being like, we're going to show you that you can go farther than you can go, than you believe you can go. That is like, it can be exhausting. It's more exhausting than just doing it yourself, for sure. But while somebody's in that, it can feel like trauma. It can bring up feelings that remind them of a way they felt when someone was hurting them. And I think because this kind of language is new for people, in our society, especially, what happens is the things are confused. And also historically restaurants are that way. And so it's like when you come into a place where it's like, no, we're going to push you and it's not going to be great unless you love this. And you can tell that what we're doing is actually not trauma, is actually not negativity, is actually, we're not going to ever call you names. We're never going to belittle you as a person. We're never doing any of those things, but we're going to make you better at this job if you want to get better at this job. That distinction has come to be really important to me, because when I first, the first months of Osito, I was like, basically rolled back completely on the intensity, that in kitchens that I felt. And I had come from hostile kitchens, not all of them, but like I'd been in those environments I had become those environments, like most of us, the nature versus nurture kind of thing. And
Sure.
I've been nurtured into the kind of same things that I don't enjoy, and that I didn't want to
Yep.
be, right? That I didn't want to be. So coming in here, it took me a few months, you know, being super too cash, and then things not happening, and then having to and then getting frustrated, and before I realized, oh, that's what it is. There's a difference between saying, I'm going to hold you to extremely high standards. You're going to work very hard here. It's going to be really intense. And if you love that and want to be really good at this, then you're going to have a good experience. And if you don't, you're going to feel traumatized. So two things happen. One is I have to be incredibly clear about the things that I say when I say them and intentional about it. I have to know without a doubt whether I'm talking to somebody out of anger or out of love, right? Because they can be very similar, in intensity.
Yeah.
They can, but if I can be saying the same exact thing actually, and one place I can tell is coming because I care about this person and I want them to get better. And one place can sound maybe exactly the same, but inside I can feel that I want to say it because I'm upset, right? And there's a difference there. And so being super critical about that with myself, sitting down with people as we interview them and just being honest, if you don't love, if you don't believe that you're fit for really, really hard work that's going to be emotionally exhausting and intense because you're going to become connected to it. If you don't think that you love this as a career and you're just kind of figuring things out, it's not going to be good. It's just not going to be good.
Sure. Sure.
And that is also loving people, right? That is loving people. That's me saying hey, listen, as a human being, I care about you and I want you to have a good experience. I also know that sometimes you can have a bad experience and it be what you're bringing into the experience. You know what I mean? So I was super afraid because, at first but once it clicked with me, how thin the line was, but how very clear it felt to me. I started to be able to settle in and run the restaurant the way I think it should be ran, which actually is to say that people are going to leave here all the time having bad experiences. And do we know that we're doing everything we can to be a good work environment all at the same time? And it's yes. I can be clear about both of those things.
Totally. The sort of high standard of excellence, which coming to mind is an Olympian's coach, right? They're going to push that person beyond what they know they're capable of. Know when to dial it back and when to push harder and when to push back and when to push harder. The whole objective is to get that person ready on game day so that they, break that 350 mile or whatever. Right? And that's what they're pushing people to do. Right? And it sounds like that's what your role as the owner and head chef of Osito is to play, you're a chef, you're in the kitchen with people, but you're also the coach of the kitchen to make sure that everybody's performing at their highest level. And that on top of what you were saying before, the pressure cooker and every day's game day, right?
Yeah.
So I can see how, that level, it's a demanding kind of work that I imagine also draws a certain kind of person to who is a chef. There's a desire for intensity, but also this creative soul involved in it, which gets very attached to their work and can feel tender about it and whatever. And
it's very complicated. It's very complicated. Yeah.
It's so cool to actually get into the mind of, a Michelin star chef and what this looks like.
I mean, I think historically that's why, there's a famous quote from Chef Marco Pure White, and he just, he's infamously horrible in the kitchen and 3 Michelin stars, renowned by all of us, one of the greats. And, his the quote is feelings are for the bedroom. And, and that's how it is largely, and it's hard because if you're going for that kind of excellence, consistency, standards, those things are what's important. And feelings, they complicate that, they complicate that. And so part of why restaurants were so terrible was to just smash that stuff out of existence, And so if you're someone like me who can't sleep at night when you act that way, and I have, it's okay, well, how do we invite the rest of the person into the kitchen? How do we invite all of them? How do we work with all of them? Honestly, it's very challenging.
Yeah. We got into this topic because you're saying how challenging it is, threading a needle to balance having very high standards while also showing hospitality to one another as a staff, so that overflows into, how you are also with guests who are eating there.
Yeah.
So I've heard the side of it that is, having the high standards and, pushing people sometimes that's tough. What does extending hospitality to your staff practice look like? How do you try to embody that part too?
Yeah, so like making time to sit with people when things are difficult, um, extending kind of different ways of dealing with what some might think of as like disciplinary action type things. Um, Being committed to the growth of people, the way they exist within the community, or the ecosystem of the restaurant. Which is to say, not just being like, you're kind of a tyrant, or like, or you're not, you're not getting the work, or you're not, you're not your behavior is causing problems, or all the things in which we can just like the ways in which we can just be like, this person is not good for us, or just kind of want to move past them. Trying to understand like where it's coming from. Try to be a part of if they are interested in, growing past that. So we have lots of one-on-ones. We talk to people, constantly, challenging them to take care of themselves outside of work. Which restaurants are, also known for late nights, lots of alcohol, drugs, those kind of, letting off steam, as it were.
Sure.
But being, we're kind of restating every day, like, hey, listen, this is a challenging work, and we expect you to show up well. And also, like, we want to, part of that is like reminding you, like, taking care of yourself is a big part of that, getting sleep,
Sure.
eating, drinking enough water, doing something that you love in the morning, or whatever it is, like finding time. Those things are super important to us. And it means for kind of our upper management that, we all have coaches. So we can, learn better ways to manage, have someone that is outside of this building, kind of neutral, help think through different ways, better ways of operating or dealing with things, especially, if historically, if you've been in kitchens a long time,
Sure.
Because, it's like there's, like emotional maturity. I mean, it's like it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of like, not just work, but like wanting to do work, wanting to be like, okay, like I see how I'm acting X, Y, or Z, and I see how it's not working for me anymore, but I don't know another way. And so like, let's think through some ways,
Yeah.
and then giving people space to like grow, like not just being like, hey, like we talked about this thing, you need to cut it out, but being like, okay, well, like this is a process of undoing or doing, whatever. It's a process of building or or demolishing, whichever process you're in, knowing that like it doesn't happen overnight, and it's like doing the human work, and kind of like letting that, I think a lot about like in kitchens, you'll hear a lot about like, what is your legacy, cooks you building good cooks a lot of the times, you know what I mean? They're always like,
Sure.
give more to the restaurant than you take because, your legacy is going to be, showing people that or whatever. For me, it's kind of like, what is our legacy? Is it going to be that you could ask, 70%, 80% of the people who came here, that were actually down for the ride, what that we listened and we helped and they took something away from it and they're better for it now, or is it going to be something else, and frankly, strangely, I don't know if like teaching someone how to be a better cook is the thing that I care about the most. I think it will inevitably happen. I'm going to teach you how to cook. Like
Yes.
that is going to happen. It has to happen. but
Yeah.
did we help? Like, did we help build with the building blocks to a different you, a more stable, a more open, a more loving, whatever the thing is? Did we help, and were we a path to that? Those are the questions that we ask and that we try to nail. And the difficult thing is like, sorry, I've been going through this lately, so you're going to hear it come up a lot. It's like everyone comes saying that that's what they're down for. Yeah, I want to do something different. You guys, I heard you doing it different, and then it's so hard to let that go. When I would argue that most of them didn't really want to, like weren't really ready or whatever it is. And the thing that I wrestle with the most is that like we're not gonna get to everyone. There are always going to be people who have that experience. And it is a bit daunting to think about that. But I guess that's kind of life, right? Like that's just kind of how it is.
Mm.
Even with your family, I mean, like you're the one consistent thing about being human is brokenness and the fact that we're all going to let each other down, right? So
I think exactly. Yes, exactly. And your work's gonna let you down. Maybe most of all, no matter where you work. Like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. I mean,
um, seriously. What when I think there's like a certain sort. I hear a high value for emotional maturity and development
uh huh,
in how you run the restaurant, but how you invest in the people who work there too. Um, but also not from this like you know therapeutic angle, but more from like a um, I don't know what the I'm no therapist, but like the exposure therapy angle, like the fear floating. It's just like you're going to have buttons pushed, and I'll be along for the ride if you want to like work that through and not let that get in the way of like bringing your best self to this work and growing and expanding. You
yeah,
know, but at the same time, you know, like people. I mean, I get it when my buttons are pushed. Sometimes I stick with it. Sometimes I'm out,
yeah,
and I think like that's we all get to make those choices. So yeah, but gosh, but it sounds like a far more like complex and emotional psychological like work than I would have ever realized actually. You know, but I guess that does make sense because that's the way that a lot of people who have to perform at really high levels. You watch a tennis match or something like it's a mental game
yeah,
that they're playing, right? Like they got to play really well, but they're playing a mental game, and um, it's I guess it's the same for like chefs in really high quality restaurants as well. That's what I'm learning through this.
yeah, yeah.
So then like we've talked a lot about kind of like in the kitchen, you know, folks, you know, the
Uh
staff.
huh.
How do you hope that translates then into your guest experience and you know what you hope happens for them at Osito?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing is we hope that when you come in, you feel like it's a place where you're going to be taken care of. You know, um, that's the main feeling we hope that you get is like we are here to serve each other. You know, that we actually on some level believe that like the highest calling of any human is to be of service to another human being. You know, so hold on one second.
Okay.
Yeah, so at the restaurant.
You're working in you're working in a live
Yeah,
environment where people need to come to the door.
that's right.
I love it. So with people like feeling fully taken care of and you know fully served and stuff, what are the ways you do that? Like because especially tell us like paint a picture for us of like the sort of pre work that goes into that experience for people.
um, yeah, I mean, like we know exactly what's coming into Osito every night. That's really big, so that we know exactly how much to prepare for, and we can be very specific about the details in each dish. We try our best to observe any allergies and dietary restrictions, which not all restaurants at our level do. More and more these days, but it becomes very complicated. Sometimes you might be serving several different menus in a night, because of this, and so like making sure that people know. So a couple of things go into it. One, making like we try to be very clear about what menu we're running on our um, reservation site, so that people can have an idea of what they're coming into. We do that with the titles and by language on the reservation screen, to like so they can know what to be prepared for. We try to use very specific language around the type of restaurant that we are, and what experience is on offer and what experience is not on offer. Um, and this kind of sounds, it sounds creepy, but it's not. I mean, it is. This is kind of standard practice that we look up everyone who comes in, and if we can find preferences or something like that, like we'll adhere to those
Yeah.
preferences. That was the ice maker.
Okay.
um, you know, like, and then if you are a guest who comes back, we start to take notes on the things that you like, temperatures you like your wine at, types of wine you like, where you like to sit at the table, like these kinds of things. Like,
Yeah.
we like to know and take into account.
It sounds like a lot of like very, very much like treating people as individuals who have like their own preferences and paying attention enough to that. Um, even sometimes guessing, it's versus like just offering the same thing that everybody would always expect or
Mhm.
something, but like really trying to tailor the experience for
Yeah.
people. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, on some level, yes. On another level, yes, on the level that we want people to feel like we're paying attention. You know,
Yeah.
um, paying attention is important. Um, and no, on the level that we believe that if you're coming here, you are coming here, in fact, to see what we are doing. So we're not going to let you take the reins, you know?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
if it's like a preference or something, sometimes we will tell you no. But we'll tell you no in the hopes that are want to come and discover something with us. Because that is in fact
Oh,
what this restaurant is about. It's about discovery. It's about care and comfort, and being well enough cared for that you let us serve things and do things that are not of the regular convention necessarily for a fine dining restaurant of our type.
what's an example of something that's like outside of the convention?
Um,
Fine dining restaurant.
yeah, like for us, like you'll just for like example, like our main courses here in the tasting menu. I'll say like 99% of restaurants, you're gonna get something like one of the cuts of a protein that people think are the most prized, and that's what you're going to get, right? So probably a little cut of Wagyu steak or a duck breast or you know uh, something of that nature, where it's like ooh fancy, but
Sure.
here we'll serve you a tongue, or we'll serve you a heart, or we'll serve you all the parts of a duck, including the brains and the liver and all those things. But we won't serve you the breast, like, or we will
Interesting.
serve it to you, but it won't be what you think it's going to be. It's not going to be,
No.
it's not going to be the star of the show. Or like, for example, the menu we're running right now is an all fish menu, and it's like the main course is a porridge. It's a rice porridge. Of course, it's really beautiful ingredients, but it's peasant food. It's like humble food from the places that most of us come from. Um, or the kind of food that most of us grew up eating. And so, like the challenge for us is what is luxury. And we do have like the things like we have caviar and truffles are in season. We have truffles. We love beautiful, lavish ingredients. It's not saying that, but it's saying like where at the table do those belong, and is the only expression of something that is, quote unquote, fine dining or beautiful or luxurious. One of those things that we think of, right? Like I think of luxury as like being able to have meat, or like like if you're before the mass production of or large big ag, it's like when you're at the butcher or whatever, like you would have, or your family would have like an animal, and you'd butcher that animal and you'd have it all year and you'd eat all the different parts of it, and or you could go to the butcher shop and you might have a pork chop, but like if they only butchered two pigs, there's only so many pork chops and you're going to eat the rest of the pig or whatever it is. And those things are all delicious and beautiful for different reasons. And so the idea is, can you build something that is every bit as beautiful, but also saying like you should value the rest of this animal as well, or like we don't want to just serve that one part and have a farmer I don't know, freeze all the other parts or whatever it is to be part of that chain, just to say like that is not in fact what we find beautiful. So it can be challenging because you have to make people comfortable, and be like, yes, this is duck brains, and we think you should eat them, and they are delicious, we promise. Or like, here are some fish eyes, we think they're beautiful, we promise. We have to make you feel like, and like these are things that other cultures in other countries have no problem with, but it's not like that here, right? And so it's like
Right.
the big part is like, can we make you feel like this is the place? If you were going to experience something new, did we do a good enough job that you're like, okay, I trust you? That's kind of like the big thing.
That's interesting. Yeah. That you would extend so much care and hospitality that people feel a sense of trust and belonging enough to get weird and do something surprising and discover something. That's really
Yeah.
cool. I'm we've been talking about this from the angle of your restaurant, Osito, and your experience as a chef. I'm wondering, think out loud with me about this. How would this sort of information apply to like a person who's hosting a dinner party or at home or something like that? What are some of the things that you've picked up along the way about food hospitality that could help a person extend hospitality through their home?
Um, yeah, I think the one thing is it's different. It's different, like
Yeah.
this restaurant there, people are coming specifically to kind of see, what it is that we're doing. And in your home, I would argue that it's not necessarily like that. You know, I think it is different in a lot of ways. I spent a lot of my years, um, I love having guests over. You've been a guest over. Like I, I have loved to cook for people and bring people around the table for my whole life. And for years, I would just do so much to try to impress people, like this lavish spread out of my little kitchen to like impress people. But really, like, and then because I tried to do so much, it was never like everything was as good as I wanted it to be, right? And so, or whatever it is, I'd just be like, oh yeah, like that's okay. I would for this strange thing would happen. And then one day I realized, like, yeah, that these people, they're just coming over because they love me and they want to be around me. And so, and I don't need to prove anything to them, like it's just a different thing than the restaurant because like at my home, it's like, I want to just do something that's simple and then spend time with my friends and then just be confident enough in myself that it's going to be what everyone hoped it would be.
That makes sense. You actually have to dial back this thing in you that's like, okay, highest level
go for broke.
achievement. Be impressive with what you're making.
Yeah.
Instead, like, turn up. Let's just be simple and enjoy each other's presence. Like, yeah.
Right. And I think that's the biggest thing, right? It's like just, yeah, exactly. What you have at your home is just that you're together. And so the more complicated you make it, the kind of less you're able to be together. That's kind of, so it's not the same, but it is. And at home, I would never like serve something challenging to people, because my wife's son can eat something challenging,
I hear that. That makes a lot of sense. You've been so generous with your time with me, so I want to wrap up here.
Okay.
But so where can people, find out about the stuff that you're up to? Come visit, all of that. Where can they go?
Yeah. So either our Instagram for either restaurant, it's at Osito, OSITOSF _, or at Liliana, LILIANA SF _ or just _. And then we have websites for both restaurants, Liliana or Osito. You can get reservations for Osito on Talk. You can get reservations for Liliana on Resi. We're in the Mission in San Francisco. And yeah, we're out here.
Great. Yeah. I'll put all of that info on a little link so that people can easily find it in the show notes and stuff. And thank you for a wonderful interview, Seth. This was awesome, and it went places where I would have never expected, which is part of the delight for me in having these conversations. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this conversation and, as a researcher doing this sort of work, trying to understand people's home lives from these sorts of different fascinating angles, I'm trying to like splice it up and find themes and insights that people can then take and create a life that they love at their own home. If you enjoyed this conversation, you might want to check out homelifedesignlab.com, which is where I'm writing up my analysis on the whole newsletter and everything. And I invite you to be a paid subscriber to that and to this podcast in order to support all this work and to unlock some little extras for you that will help encourage and inspire your home life. So thank you very much for listening. And thank you again, Seth, for being an awesome interview.
Thanks, Matt. Nice hanging.